the CBC News app. Download for free.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the CBC Listen app for free and fall in love at first.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Riley Lachuk in Winnipeg. At noon, it is 15 degrees, a mostly cloudy sky at the moment. We're looking at a bit of a cooler day today, a mainly cloudy afternoon ahead. Forecast high 20 degrees. We begin with a history lesson in the making as Manitoba teachers sign a province-wide bargaining agreement today. It is the first time all 37 teacher collective agreements have been amalgamated into one. Manitoba Teacher Society President Nathan Martindale says it follows 2 years of intense negotiations.
Is a testament to the power of collaboration, perseverance, and mutual respect. This agreement addresses the concerns of both MTS and MSBA members, and it's going to improve education for our children because teachers' working conditions are students' learning conditions.
Martindale credits the negotiating teams for both sides. The Manitoba School Boards Association says trustees are thankful to have an agreement. Now superintendents are looking at what the deal means for their financial situations. Well, overseas today, the Israeli military says it has rescued one of the hostages abducted by Hamas in the attacks on October 7th. Sasha Petrusik has the latest.
The hostage that was released is a 52-year-old from Israel's Bedouin community. He was a security guard at a packing plant on a kibbutz on October 7th when he was abducted. His name is Qaid Farhan Al-Qadi, and he's in pretty good shape from the pictures that have been released, the videos that have been released of him in hospital. This is what the Israeli military had to say about his release.
We cannot go into many details of this special operation, but I can share that Israeli commandos rescued Qaid Farhan Al-Qadi from an underground tunnel. His medical condition is stable, and he will undergo examination in hospital.
In the last 10 and a half months, almost 11 months since the abductions took place, the Israeli military has only been able to rescue a handful of hostages alive. And according to the president of Israel, it brings great joy to the country. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Israel says there are still 108 hostages inside Gaza, but of that number, more than 40 are believed to be dead. Winnipeg police are asking for the public's help after a car-pedestrian crash last night. Police say a woman was crossing McPhillips Street near McCrae Avenue around 9:30 when she was struck by a Nissan pickup truck. The 50-year-old driver of that truck stayed on the scene and spoke with police. The woman, who police have not been able to identify, was taken to hospital in unstable condition with serious injuries. Anyone with information, including video or dash cam footage from the area last night, is asked to contact police. Well, as expected, Beijing has responded to news that Canada will be imposing a steep 100% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles. And no surprise, China is calling the move an act of trade protectionism. Laura Westbrook has more.
Following the announcement by Canada, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Li Jiang had this to say.
Canada's actions are in disregard of facts. They ignore WTO rules and run counter to historical trends. This is typical act of trade protectionism.
Canada's move follows similar ones by the US and the EU to impose high tariffs on Chinese EVs. Governments in North America, Asia and Europe have expressed concern Beijing is trying to export its way out of its own economic difficulties, with heavily subsidized Chinese products flooding the market at cheap prices. Drew Thompson from Singapore's Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy.
China's economic policy is based on subsidizing the means of industrial production rather than improving the economic conditions that would stimulate domestic consumption.
Analysts expect Beijing to retaliate, which could come in the form of targeting Canadian products. Laura Westbrook for CBC News, Hong Kong.
The Australian government is announcing a new cap on the number of international students next year. The number of international students will be limited to 270,000. Jason Clare is the Australian Education Minister.
There'll be more in our universities, and there'll be fewer in our private vocational providers. And these reforms are designed to make it better and fairer and set it up on a more sustainable footing
Record migration is creating a housing crisis in Australia. And finally, a Regina dog rescue is hoping to capitalize on Saskatchewan's dislike for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers ahead of the Labor Day Classic this upcoming long weekend. Bright Eyes Dog Rescue is sneaking around the Queen City, putting signs on people's lawns reading Winnipeg Blue Bombers' biggest fan. People pay $20 to send that sign to people, and then people are asked to pay $20 to get the signs taken off their lawns. April Christensen is a volunteer with Bright Eyes Dog Rescue.
They're keeping us very busy running and chasing it around, moving the signs and stuff like that. And so it's been excellent. We have had a few, one of the former riders ended up with it on his lawn, and he figured it was just the greatest thing ever.
Christensen says the money raised goes to help pay for food, medical costs, veterinary costs, and basically anything associated with taking care of pets while they're in foster care. And that is CBC News from Winnipeg. I'll have more coming up at 12:30 right here on Radio Noon, taking a look at your weather. 20 degrees today in Winnipeg, a mainly cloudy afternoon ahead. 21 in Brandon, 23 in Dauphin this afternoon, a mix of sun and clouds clearing through the afternoon in the west today. Thompson looking at a mix of sun and clouds and 20 degrees. You're listening to CBC Radio 1.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Radio Noon. I'm Brittany Greenslade filling in for Janet Stewart this week, and we have a jam-packed show talking about whether or not Manitoba should get a new flag. A new poll says Manitobans are split. We want you to weigh in. So we're going to open the phone lines about 12:35. If you have an idea already, give us a text 204-588-7355. Plus, a big welcome home. The Rowing Club of Kenora is hosting a special community event to honor and welcome home Olympic silver medalist Abby Dent tonight. We'll speak to the newly minted Olympian to find out what Paris was like and about that medal moment. But first, the deal is sealed. A province-wide deal for Manitoba's public teachers was signed this morning. Coming up, Manitoba Teachers Society President Nathan Martindale. Good afternoon. It is 12:07 on Radio Noon. Well, Manitoba Teachers Union hosted a signing ceremony this morning. The public teachers now have a new deal that includes wage increases exceeding 12% over 4 years. Now, previously, different school divisions have had different teacher salaries, but this contract, the province's first, is going to change that. The Manitoba Teachers Society President Nathan Martindale spoke to reporters after the deal was signed.
I think this collective agreement, this brand new collective agreement, does a good thing. It's going to attract more teachers to go into the teaching profession. Teaching is a good job. We've talked about that recently, recruitment and retention of teachers. It's a problem not only here in Manitoba, but across Canada and even the world. So this collective agreement is going to work on curbing that trend and having more teachers see teaching as a profession that they want to not only get into but stay in.
No, obviously this deal's it's got to be paid for, right? So are we going to be seeing, or Winnipeggers and people in Manitoba are going to be seeing raises in property taxes as well as a counterbalance for this?
Well, that depends on where you live in Manitoba, and that's not necessarily for me to comment on. I represent the Manitoba Teachers Society at the bargaining table on behalf of teachers. How divisions pay for it will be up to the divisions.
Can I ask on the state of teachers right now? Like, how are we doing right now? Because obviously this is a big deal, and this is going to be attracting new teachers into the market, but how are we doing in this market right now?
This new collective agreement will go a long way in terms of stopping or at least slowing down that recruitment and retention problem that we have in Manitoba here, and hopefully even attract prospective teachers from other provinces to come to Manitoba, and or students in high school thinking of teaching as a profession.
Pretty significant announcement this morning. Just get you to reiterate your thoughts on how you're feeling on behalf of Manitoba Teachers Society.
Well, personally, I'm ecstatic. It's very exciting. A historic first ever provincial agreement for the Anglophone teachers in Manitoba. And this is 105 years in the making. This is something that is brand new as well. Before we had local bargaining, which I participated in a previous role, but now this is the very first provincial collective agreement. It's very exciting, and I know that teachers across Manitoba and the ones that I've talked to are excited for today as well.
Once you have that standardized salary in place, I imagine teachers may be more encouraged to switch divisions. Do you imagine that maybe hurting some of the rural divisions that may be farther away from Winnipeg?
Well, that's hard to say. It's hard to predict. I think it'll do the opposite. If divisions have the same rate of pay across the province, then if you're a teacher in a small rural division, for example, you won't be attracted to move to a metro division here in Winnipeg for a higher rate of pay. You can stay in Beausejour or Carberry or Swan River because the rate of pay is the same, so there's a less incentive to move.
The salaries have been described by one commentator as astronomical, would put Manitoba among the highest in the country. Given that we have a lower, cost of living here in Manitoba, I guess, should Manitoba teachers be among the highest paid in the country?
Well, that's always in flux. I'm in constant contact with my colleagues across Canada in the same positions in provinces and territories, and some have just wrapped up rounds of bargaining, some are just entering rounds of bargaining, and some are off to arbitration. So that's an ever-changing number. So you can compare the numbers right now, and Manitoba may be at the highest, but fast forward a year, and we could be second highest. So it's always changing. This is a good deal for teachers in Manitoba. It will attract more teachers to come into the profession. And what happens in other provinces and territories also depends on their respective provincial and territorial governments. So I find it interesting to watch, but interesting to see how the next couple of years play out.
Do you imagine those other jurisdictions will be looking at Manitoba as something to follow?
Absolutely, and I was just telling the story. I was at the Canadian Teachers Federation AGM in Vancouver this past summer when we reached an agreement in committee. So it was very exciting for me to announce to the room, and got a big round of applause that everyone was happy for Manitoba teachers. But of course, all those people who were involved in bargaining, whether staff or elected representatives, knew, okay, we got to see what the numbers they got in Manitoba, because that will help in our own bargaining. And that's a good thing.
Are there any notable quirky pieces of this contract or non-salary related gains that you wanted to highlight? Absolutely.
There's some places in the province that didn't have prep time as an article in their collective agreement. And for those of us teaching in Winnipeg here in the metro region, that was just a given. So now prep time is enshrined in the collective agreement. 5.5-hour school day is another one. There has been situations in other divisions where it's gone to arbitration in terms of the length of the school day. And now we'll have a consistent length of the school day of 5.5 hours for teachers outside of breaks and prep time and lunch.
That was Manitoba Teachers Society President Nathan Martindale speaking to reporters this morning after signing a historic provincial bargaining agreement for the province's teachers. You can read this story on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
As the world of advertising gets more and more cluttered, ad placements are showing up in some unique spaces, like on sheep, in urinals, and commuters' armpits on crowded subways. Wacky ad spaces on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM and 990 AM. Well, we have a busy show ahead. We're going to be speaking with Olympic silver medalist Abby Dent, who's being welcomed with a community party tonight in her hometown of Kenora. And then after, we're going to be opening up the phone lines because is Manitoba's flag a drag? According to a new poll, Manitobans are split when it comes to whether the province should get a new flag. We'll chat with a man who says it's high time the banner got a new look. We want to know how you feel about that. Should we get a new flag? You can text us right away, 204-588-7355, or wait till we open up those phone lines in about 20 minutes. Let's take a look outside now. Here in Winnipeg, it's mainly cloudy, a high of 20 degrees today. A nice little bit of a reprieve after that hot weekend. Clearing this evening to a low of 9. So if you're heading out tonight, you might want to bring a jacket with you. Another sunny day tomorrow, but increasing cloudiness in the afternoon. Over in Brandon, clearing this afternoon, looking for a high of 21. Clear, a low of 8 tonight. So again, chilly for you as well, but sunny tomorrow afternoon, increasing cloudiness with 60% chance of showers later in the afternoon and rain tomorrow night. In Thompson, sunny, mix of sun and cloud this afternoon, highs of 20. Clearing overnight, a chilly low of just 6 degrees. And in Churchill, mix of sun and cloud this afternoon, looking for a high of 17, dropping to 9 tonight, and a mix of sun and cloud tomorrow afternoon. Well, Desiree Dorian's latest single explores the emotional aftermath at the end of a relationship. Have a listen. This is Desiree Dorian with Ghost.
Don't wanna hear your name, don't wanna go where you go. Just in case, don't wanna feel you there, don't wanna breathe the same air. You're not gonna haunt me, I ain't gonna be scared by your ghost. Picture of us since our love went up in smoke. Changed all the stations you had programmed on the radio. I got an axe tattoo and dyed my hair cherry red. I'm never taking back the last words I said. Don't wanna see your face, don't wanna hear your name, don't wanna go where you go. Just in case, don't wanna feel you there, don't wanna breathe the same air. You're not gonna haunt me, I ain't gonna be scared by your ghost. My mama thinks that I've completely went and lost my mind. I do what I want now that your hand ain't holding back mine. Call it a first, I finally had a one-night stand. Don't know his name, but I do it all again. Don't wanna see your face, don't wanna hear your name, don't wanna go where you go. Just in case, don't wanna feel you there, don't wanna breathe the same air. You're not gonna haunt me, I ain't gonna be scared by your
That was Manitoba's own Desiree Dorian with Ghost. It is 12:18 on Radio Noon. I'm your host, Brittany Greenslade, filling in for Janet Stewart. Well, a big welcome home to Abby Dent. The City and Rowing Club of Kenora are inviting the community to an event tonight to celebrate the newly minted silver medalist home from the Paris 2024 Olympics. Abby competed for Canada as part of the women's 8 crew, and they won the silver medal. Abby joins us now by Zoom. Good afternoon, Abby.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I see something around your neck right here. First, before we get into any of this, let me see that medal.
It's not too bad.
Wow.
Pretty shiny.
It's pretty. Look at that. What do you, it looks heavy.
It's 2.7 pounds. This thing weighs you down a little bit, that's for sure.
I like that you know exactly how much it weighs.
Yeah, that was the first thing we did when we got home.
Oh, that is so awesome. Abby, take me through that moment when your team won the silver medal.
Oh my goodness. Honestly, it was kind of a blur at this point, but it was definitely something to remember. I remember the last 600 meters of the race, kind of the first 1400, you're kind of in the race. You're not really paying too much attention to where you are compared to other boats, but those last 600 meters were pretty special. I remember our coxswain telling us that we were in the standing for a medal, so give it everything you got at that point. So I remember crossing the finish line. We didn't really know what spot we were in, so we sat there for a second and looked at the leaderboard to see where we were crossing. I feel like it took like 10 minutes. It was probably like 10 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. And then we saw that we got silver, and it was a pretty exciting moment. I had this whole plan to do this big, exciting celebration when we got a medal, and I think I just cried instead. So it was a pretty emotional but amazing moment.
I love that because you can always think, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And you've got that perfect moment planned, and then emotions take over. And the tears keep flowing. So what did that really feel like for you? You talked about having to really just dig deep in that last few hundred meters and give it your all.
Yeah, I mean, the whole race was like, you think you know what you're going to do, but you just go out there and do 110% more. Like, you're never going to, you just always got to go and give it 1% more than what you really think you're going to be able to do. I remember crossing, and I had a moment of like, oh my God, like, we're done. Like, that's it. That's the Olympics. Like, we just finished. We finished our race. I got nothing left. Like, that was it. So that kind of, oh my goodness moment when you crossed and you kind of had to sit down for a second, and you're like, yeah, that was pretty neat, but that was it. That's it.
Pretty cool. So talk to us about what it was like being in Paris, competing there, living in the athletes' village, getting to meet people from all over the world.
Yeah, so rowing is actually an outside venue. So we were about an hour to an hour and a half outside of Paris. So we stayed in a hotel for our venue for the first week while we were racing. But it was pretty neat though. It was a really nice hotel. They had catering and everything there too. So it was basically like living in the village, but hotel. But honestly, I thought it was a lot better than the village was really nice. We got to go visit the second week. But I think being in the hotel kind of eliminates a lot of those distractions around you while you're racing. So being able to just get on the bus, go to practice or go to race, and then come back, eat, sleep, like you're kind of in this little quarantine bubble that you got going on with your team. So having that definitely eliminated a lot of the distractions of the village. But we got to go see the village the second week, so that was really neat. There's about anything and everything you could imagine to go see and do, and the amount of people that you meet and athletes and from different countries and different sports was really, it was extraordinary to see and talk to a whole bunch of people. And even meeting different Team Canada athletes was pretty neat too, and kind of hearing their stories of how they got to the Olympics, how many Olympics they've been to at that point, and all the stories was awesome.
I feel like living in the hotel, it's got to be a bit more normal because you would have done that for travel for other competitions and events, whereas the Athletes Village, I feel like it could maybe get a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Like, so before we had done a training camp in Italy for 2 weeks before heading over to Paris. You've kind of lived in a hotel for 3 weeks at that point. So you're pretty used to it and living under your suitcase and going room to room and that kind of thing. So it definitely helped. It made it feel more just like a normal regatta that we would go to. Like, it was nothing super big and crazy. I mean, when you got to the venue, it was definitely big and crazy, that's for sure. But having the factor of just feeling more normal at home, or like home in your hotel, was a nice touch to it too.
For those watching us on YouTube right now, we just saw a video of you getting that medal hung over your neck. What was that moment like?
That was, honestly, it didn't feel real. I don't think it has felt real yet. I'm sure one day it'll click in that this whole thing happened. But I remember getting the medal and I was like, okay, I need to find my parents in the stands and show them that I did it, like Mom, I did it kind of thing. But honestly, being there and watching all my teammates get the medal before me was a pretty emotional moment.
I was following along with some of these on social media too, and on TikTok, and we saw some of these athletes that were talking about all the food in the village too, particularly about some chocolate cupcakes. Was there anything that really got you through the Olympics, whether it was a piece of food, whether it was something you brought from home? Was there something that you took with you?
Honestly, I brought a picture with me of my family from home. That was kind of the biggest one. Also, my dad would send me pictures of my dog every day. So not to sound like a dog lover, but that was pretty nice just to kind of feel like you're still normal and you're not doing anything too crazy. Kind of having a little touch of home with you was a big a nice moment. But
it's
oh my
important.
God,
You've got to have the dog, right? The support.
Yeah, exactly. She's been there the whole time, so it's awesome.
So the city of Kenora and the rowing club are honoring you tonight. Tell us about your connection to the rowing club there.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where it all started. I started in the high school here at TA, and they did a little Learn to Row program. So that's kind of how I got into it. I went to practice the first day on Rabbit Lake. I was the only kid that really went that day. So it was me and the coach, and that's kind of how it were. Where it started. And then we went to Winnipeg for Team Manitoba. And then, yeah, Kenora's kind of been there the whole time for me. It's really nice to have a little local moment here and see everybody and get to recognize them as well and all the hard work that they've put in to help me get to where I am now.
We're still claiming you as one of our own here in Manitoba. We're gonna
Yeah.
You may train in Kenora, but we're going to claim you.
Yeah, Team Manitoba was a big part of it.
Exactly. So what has it been like training and just evolving as an athlete over these years in Kenora and to finally, have that cherry on top with the medal at the Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time coming. This is my 8th year rowing, and I'm only 22, so I started pretty young. I rowed in Kenora for 1 year and then started moving away from home during the summer, so I haven't really been home in that long. So it's kind of nice to be back for a couple weeks. But yeah, so it started rowing in Kenora, went to Winnipeg, and then started the junior national team programs and the under 23 program, and then went to school, and then came back and rowed on the senior team for the last year and a half. So there's been quite a few teams along the way there, but every piece had its moment. So
lots of people to thank, I'm sure.
Oh, 100%. Thousands.
Yes. How supportive has the community been? You've had, like you talked about the community here in Manitoba. You've got the community back home in Kenora. Of course, your family and friends as well.
Yeah. No, honestly, the communities have been such a big part of this too. And the Kenora Rowing Club has been such a big help and always there to support me and give me boats when I needed to row and put coaches out and launches out on the water early in the morning before school so I could practice. And honestly, anything and everything I ever needed, they were always there and happy to help without questions. So I can't thank them enough.
So Abby, I hear there's a boat naming ceremony. What can you tell us about that?
Honestly, I don't know too much about it. That was news
It's
to
all
me too
secret.
this morning. So yeah. I don't know which boat it is, but honestly, it's kind of crazy. Like I've always rowed in Winnipeg. They had boats named after people and Kenora, so being able to row in those boats and you're like, oh my gosh, this is kind of cool. Like I'm rowing in this famous person's boat, but now to have my own boat named after me is kind of neat. And I hope other kids can look at that and be inspired as well. So I'm kind of excited.
You're the famous person now. You're the famous person with the name on the boat. That is cool. That's a full circle moment.
I know, exactly. So
at 22, my goodness. So how are you feeling heading into tonight's celebrations?
I'm a little bit nervous. I mean, there's a lot of people there, so that's always a big part of it, but really excited to see everybody and get to see and meet everybody and get to celebrate everything. Yeah.
So Abby, at just 22 years old, what's next? I'm sure much more rowing in your future that we're going to be seeing.
Probably, yeah. I go back to school here on Thursday, so I have 1 more year at the University of Michigan, and then I'll graduate and move home for a year, and then possibly move back out to Vancouver Island for 2028.
Love it. Well, congratulations. Good luck on your last year of schooling, and we hope to see much more of Abby Dent, and of course, this boat that is going to be named after you that will have many, many, hopefully future Olympians rowing in it as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.
Enjoy your night, Abby.
Thank you. You too.
Olympic silver medalist Abby Dent. The event happens tonight from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Kenora Rowing Club.
Hearts will race. Champions will emerge.
The Canadian is a champion.
Medals will shine. The best of the best are set to compete for Paralympic glory. Experience the extraordinary with extended live event coverage and full event replays. The 2024 Paralympics begin August 28th, live from Paris. Watch free on CBC Gem. Our community.
Those who shape this place come from all walks of life.
Some of us you hear every day.
And others are working hard to make Manitoba a better place.
The movers and shakers.
The change makers.
the people making a difference.
And CBC Manitoba is where you'll hear their stories.
CBC Winnipeg News at 6.
Information radio.
Up to speed. Radio News. CBC.ca/Manitoba.
Watch, listen, experience Manitoba.
It is a pretty nice day here in the southern part of the province. It's going to be clearing this afternoon in Brandon and Manitoba. We've got some clouds out there right now, looking for highs of around 20 degrees in those areas. And then as we make our way a bit further up north, sunny mix of sun and cloud this afternoon. In Churchill, looking for a high of 17 degrees and dipping down to a low of 9. Those cooler overnights are coming, and that's what we're going to be seeing. Fall is on the way. I know. I don't want to say it either, but I have to. We want to hear from you this afternoon. We're talking about whether or not Manitoba needs a new flag. Is this old one a drag? A new poll says Manitobans are split on whether we need to get a new flag or not. You can text us 204-588-7355, and we'll be opening up those call-in lines in just a few minutes. Time now is 12:30.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Riley Lachuk in Winnipeg at 12:30. It's 16 degrees, mostly cloudy right now. We're looking at a mainly cloudy afternoon ahead, a high of 20 degrees. Manitoba's public school teachers have sealed the deal on a new contract. The teachers' union hosted a signing ceremony for that new deal this morning. The CBC's Ian Fraze was there.
The Manitoba Teachers Society says wage increases exceeding 12% over 4 years will level the playing field. Previously, different school divisions have had different teacher salaries, but this contract, the first provincial-wide deal, will change that. MTS President Nathan Martindale anticipates it'll help rural divisions that currently have lower salaries to recruit and retain staff. Manitoba School Boards Association President Sandy Nemeth says divisions have budgeted for higher salaries and back pay this year. But with the province set to unveil a new funding model for education next year, it's unclear what the future holds for ratepayers. Nemeth is expecting tough conversations. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Canada's relationship with the United States is taking center stage on the final day of the Liberal cabinet retreat in Halifax. Ottawa wants to protect its security and trade interests regardless of who wins the U.S. election in November. Canada's ambassador to the U.S., Kirsten Hillman, says Ottawa has no reason to be concerned with a potential Harris administration.
It's fairly transparent. I don't think that's that complicated. It's a lot of the similar positions that the Biden administration has had with her, but she'll put her own stamp on it, and I think that's just something that we're watching carefully.
The U.S. remains Canada's most important trading partner. RCMP says speed is believed to be a factor in a crash just north of Winnipeg that left a motorcyclist dead. Police were called to Highway 7 just south of Stony Mountain on Friday afternoon. They say the 44-year-old motorcyclist from Toulon collided with a vehicle that was crossing the highway. The man was taken to hospital but died, while the woman driving the vehicle was not injured. Air Canada is offering rebooking flexibility to passengers who have flights booked around possible strike dates. The airline says while progress has been made in its negotiations, it still faces the possibility of a pilot strike as early as September 17th. Customers with tickets for travel between September 15th and 23rd can rebook tickets for the same origin and destination up to November 30th at no additional cost. And finally, one of the biggest bands of the 1990s is reuniting for a summer tour next year. After 15 years apart, Liam and Noel Gallagher are getting Oasis back together for 14 concerts next summer. That includes 4 dates in their native Manchester and 4 at Wembley Stadium in London. Tickets go on sale at the end of the week, with estimates suggesting the band is in line to bring in more than $500 million US for those 14 concerts.
Oh my goodness.
Book your tickets now, Brittany.
I was just saying, Riley, do you think we can get the time off?
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't know. We need to put that request. Those are going to be expensive.
Expensive, and I think they're going to go very, very fast.
Oh, spendy tickets. I don't know. We'll just play it in the newsroom, and you and I can just dance in there and pretend we're having our own concert.
Yeah, totally.
Thanks, Riley.
No problem.
Well, should Manitoba get a new flag? At the start of the month, Probe Research asked this question. And according to their findings, Manitobans, well, they just can't seem to see eye to eye. Approximately 49% of respondents would like it replaced. 51% like it how it is. The current design features Manitoba's coat of arms on the old red ensign, which was similar to Canada's flag until the maple leaf was adopted in the 1960s. How do you feel about the flag? Do you want it changed? Do you have suggestions of maybe what it should look like? We want to hear from you. You can call us 204-780-0893 or give us a text 204-588-7355. David Kendall, a member of Manitoba's I'm going to say this wrong. I'm sorry, David.
That's okay.
Vexillological Association is one of the people that thinks it's high time we got a new flag. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much.
Was that close enough?
Close enough. Vexillological.
Vexillological. Okay. So what was your reaction when you saw the results of the survey?
Well, it kind of fits into what I've been seeing myself. People are split on the issue. I don't really know too many people outside of vexillological circles, of course, that have very, very strong opinions that it should change or stay the same. So there doesn't seem to be a really big consensus. And as you mentioned, it's pretty much a 50-50 split on opinion in general on whether it should change. For the information, I'm in the change camp.
Okay. I have to say it's not something that I've thought heavily about.
and that's the thing. That's why a lot of people don't have too many opinions on it, because aside from us flag nerds who really thinks about flags.
So you said you're in the change category.
Yes.
Why would you like to see it changed?
Well, there's several aspects of it from a vexillological standpoint. First of all, it's very similar to other flags, specifically Ontario, which is right to the east of us. And
we wouldn't want that.
Of course, no. Yeah, we have better teams and all that.
Right?
So why would we accept their flags? But yeah, very easily confused with other flags is definitely a point against it, especially other Canadian flags. And aside from the bison on it, there isn't really much on there that really says Manitoba on it, and it doesn't really reflect who we are as people. There's the British flag on it, which I guess represents our British heritage, founded as part of Dominion, but we're also home of Franco-Manitobans, Ukrainian immigrants, Filipino immigrants, and of course the home of First Nations and the Red River Métis lands.
So we have a lot we could celebrate ourselves.
Exactly, yeah, and this flag doesn't have much to represent all of what Manitoba is.
All right. Richard is here. I want to bring Richard in here. Richard, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What do you think about our flag?
I like the current flag, and the reason for that is it represents our history with the Union Jack in the upper left-hand corner, and it also represents our current membership in the Commonwealth of Nations.
Do you think it's too much like some of these other flags that we see out there?
No, I don't. I mean, in order to distinguish our flag from the Ontario flag, all we have to do is look at the lower right-hand corner.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time. What do you think about that, David? He thinks that, we just need to maybe look a little closer.
Well, yeah, it definitely there is differences between them, and as he said, in the lower right-hand corner there is, but of course if the flag isn't really flying that much, it doesn't really show up that much.
Yeah, sometimes you don't see that corner.
Yeah, exactly. And he also mentioned history as well. I mean, I can definitely agree with him. It does represent our history, and I give it points for that. However, histories do change. Like, for example, the Canadian flag, as you mentioned, used to be the red ensign, and it did represent our history because, like Manitoba, Canada is a member of the Commonwealth of Nations and has ties to the British Crown and all that. But we decided, look, we need to have something that reflects more of what we are. And when they changed it, who doesn't like the maple leaf flag? That was really a glow up in terms of in terms of flags, and Manitoba can do that as well while still having elements or colors that represent our history.
All right. Is it time for Manitoba's flag to have a glow up, as David puts it? Give us a call, 204-780-0893. We've got another caller here, Karen. Karen, what do you think about this? Do you like our flag, or do you think it's time for a new one?
I think our current flag is good, but, it might be a time to take a step in the decolonization direction. And it might be a fresh start to be able to bring in a flag that both recognizes some of our Indigenous roots to this province, but also some of the colors of nature. So I'm thinking yellow for the sun, because we get a lot of sun here compared to some other areas of the country which are clouded over. Some blue for the many waterways that we have. Some green for the land. And then we can't forget the white of snow.
Yes, we get lots of, and the yellow with the canola and the sunflower fields that we have here.
Yes, I think those colors of nature mixed in with some Indigenous symbols that would be appropriately picked by those nations. I think that might be a nice way to, take a step into the future and reflect, some of our historical roots.
So time to speak and collaborate with some of our First Nations friends and organizations as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Karen, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
David, what do you think about that? Do we need to have some nod to the Indigenous roots of Manitoba, and looking forward to some reconciliation, as Karen was saying?
I definitely agree. I know reconciliation is something that is important for First Nations communities right now, and this would be a good way of bringing them to the table and letting them have a voice in it. If we're looking at changing these symbols, this would be a good thing to invite them to and invite their feedback on it, because being the original inhabitants of the land, there was much welcome to have a say in it, as you and I are.
So, David, you called yourself a flag nerd. So I'm going to pick your brain a little bit, because I'm not very good with flags. If you show me a couple, I can get them, but not all of them. So Karen had mentioned using some of the colors that we see around us, the yellow for the fields and the waterways with the blue and stuff like that. Do we see that come into a lot of flags when countries, provinces, and whatnot are looking for redesigns?
Oh, yes, we have seen that. This is on my mind, I guess, because while I was waiting to go on, I was having this conversation with a CPC staffer in the waiting room there. She was mentioning how we had a poll recently about the best Manitoba flags, and Altona won that. And one of the features on Altona's flag is a big sunflower, because, of course, Altona is known for its sunflowers. It just adopted the flag recently and wanted to show off nature that way. So a little Manitoba angle, having sunflowers and blue. Of course, we have countries that do have, as you mentioned, yellow for the sun. I believe Jamaica's yellow is for its sun. Many Pacific countries have blue in their flag for the ocean. Green for nature. These are very common ideals and motifs in flags.
So we want to hear from you. Is Manitoba's flag outdated? Is it a bit of a drag? Do we need something new? What would you like to see on the flag? You can give us a call, 204-780-0893, or text us, 204-588-7355. I'm joined with David Kendall, who's a member of Manitoba's Vexillological Association. I think I said it right that time. Thank you, David. So can you walk me through some of the flag's history of our current flag?
Well, as you mentioned, the Canadian flag was introduced in mid-1960s in 1965. And that's when basically the Manitoba flag came about. There was a movement, especially in rural Manitoba and rural Ontario, places that were still very imperialist and monarchist, had a tie to the British Crown, and was concerned about losing the history, as our first caller mentioned. So they wanted to have a flag that preserved that red ensign history that we had that we were losing by adopting the maple leaf flag. So that's what we had, the red ensign flag. We put the Manitoba provincial shield on it, which was granted to us around the time that Manitoba was formed in 1870 with the bison and the cross of King George. So that is what they put on basically as a reaction against the maple leaf flag, because the old red ensign was going away and they wanted to preserve that history.
Okay, so why might some? Because you said this is a hot button topic at the association amongst your so-called flag nerds, and I say that with an endearing touch.
I can tell.
So why might some argue for this flag to stay the same? What's the argument within your group?
Well, as you mentioned, history is a big thing. Keeping the history, the ties to the monarchy, and as the first caller mentioned, the Commonwealth of Nations tag monarchy altogether in the current flag. And also another thing is that there is a cost associated with it. If the Manitoba government decided to change, they would spend, of course, money changing all the flags on provincial properties. Businesses would have to spend money, of course, changing the flags outside their business. So there is also a cost aspect always that is inherent in changing flags. And we've used this flag for many years. If you notice on the pillar there on Memorial Boulevard, the War Memorial, that's what I'm thinking of. They still have the old red ensign flag out there because we used it in fighting wars, and it's still a part of our history. So history and cost are two of the big reasons that people are saying, why change? We want to keep it.
You talk about it being ready for a glow up. How expensive is this glow up? How expensive is it to come up with a new flag?
That I don't know. I'm not in government, so I don't know how much it would cost government to change all of them. I don't think flags are too expensive myself. I have a vast collection of over 300 flags myself, so I don't think the flags are that expensive, but it does.
It's the process, though, right? There's some public consultation, I'm sure we're going to be seeing here.
Consultations, design, and all that. That is definitely a cost in there. So, however much it is, I have not crunched the numbers myself, but there is absolutely a cost involved. We can, I guess you can research how much recent flag changes, like Utah and Minnesota, they had changed their flag, so they would have had similar costs.
So full transparency, it's gonna. There's a cost associated, not just with producing the new flags and changing out the old ones, but with doing some of this public consultation here. We got a text in here from Gimli saying that the flag should be simple and easy for kids to draw because right now it's too difficult. What are your thoughts on that, David?
I definitely agree. The North American Vexillological Association put out some guidelines as to what makes a flag good. I will preface this by saying that there are flags that break these guidelines and are still very excellent flags. One of them is that it should be simple enough for a child to draw. The Canadian flag, for example, fulfills that. You might be able to not draw the maple leaf that great. I can't. I'm no artist myself, but you can definitely get the feel of it. But with the complexity of all the crosses in the Union Jack, the buffalo, of course, that's a very difficult animal to draw as well. It definitely should be something that is easier to draw, yes.
Some are easier than others. We just have blocks of colors. I like that.
Yeah,
that's real easy.
Definitely, if you can do that, that would definitely fulfill that requirement for sure.
So, David, do you have a favorite flag?
Do I have a favorite flag? I mean, I do like red and white together. So, of course,
Canada,
flags like Canada and Japan and Switzerland and things like that. I do like just from my personal like of red and white as colors. But generally, flags that meet the criterion that I mentioned earlier, that a few colors, like 2, 3, 4 colors, not too many colors. Simple, easy to draw. Has to have real meaning, not be mistaken for other flags.
That's it. We don't want to be mistaken. And that's when you mentioned Ontario. We don't want to be mistaken for Ontario. We want our own identity here in Manitoba.
Exactly. All those make good flags, and the current flag doesn't really tick any of those boxes.
No. All right. If you have a thought, give us a call, 204-780-0893, or text us, 204-588-7355. A couple other texts in here. Julie, thanks for texting in. Julie says, I would love a new flag. We have a large and diverse group of First Nations communities, and we have the geographical center of North America. Something like the medicine wheel would be striking. David, thoughts on that?
That's a new one. I hadn't heard mentioning it was a center of the country, but that's actually a very good point. Something
we
that
know Toronto likes to think that they're the center, but we here have the center in Manitoba.
Exactly. We're one less way to confuse us with Ontario,
right?
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the medicine wheel is a good way to combine both of those. The circle with the 4 colors, and there we have four simple colors. So that is a good idea. I haven't heard that one put out, but congrats to that idea.
Thank you, Julie. Love that. You can text us in like Julie, 204-588-7355. You mentioned a couple places that recently have changed their flags, Utah, Minnesota. Is it becoming more common these days to change it? It seems like flags have this really long history, but now we're starting some new history.
Yeah, it isn't a conversation that's just here in Manitoba. It seems to be more common in the States. If you're familiar with state flags, a lot of them, including the old Utah and Minnesota flags, were just basically a blue flag with a white seal on it. Kind of think something like Alberta, something like that. And again, the problem was a lot of them, you can't really tell them apart at the distance, or they would just have the seal and a big canvas or whatever written on it, where a flag isn't a name tag, it's a flag. So people are looking at changing that and bringing in more symbols that are unique to them. Like, for example, Utah had mountains and a beehive on it, which are very symbolic for the state. Minnesota has a North Star and a shape on it that's reminiscent of the outline of the state. So they're having the similar conversations that we are. And a lot of people there are saying the same things that I'm saying, that yes, it's time to have something more stand out, more distinctive.
Something that matches our identity a bit more.
Exactly.
I mean, the bison matches Manitoba's identity, but we've got a lot of other things here in Manitoba. Do you have a vision in your mind already?
I know I'd be lying if I said I haven't designed flags myself already. I know when I was younger, I'd sent out some designs that I made to premiers Philman and Dewar, to really date myself right now. And they included the bison on them and the shield, because I know that there are people that want to keep that history as well. But they had things like blue on it for the lakes and rivers and water and sky that we have, and yellow for the grain fields that dominate our southern part of our province, and red for the Red River and the indigenous heritage, and the red on the current flag. So those are the kind of things that I thought up. And of course, I've heard many other ideas, like we heard the Medicine Wheel, Center of Manitoba, nature, and things like that. There are so many things that we can have on a flag that just aren't there anymore, aren't there right now.
Julie added in that she does some digital clothing design and says it's really hard to produce those complex patterns. So when we're talking about cost as well and easy for kids to draw, that's one of the things as well, is maybe thinking more simplistic.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen some list of bad designs flags, and some of them have like gradients and pictures. Fortunately, these are only city flags and things like that. These aren't national flags or anything like that. But yeah, those things with gradients and pictures would be hard to draw. So this is going back to the just have a few colors, keep it simple, 3-4 colors.
We have another vote in saying, leave the flag alone. This is the other side of the conversation of people that say, Don't touch it. This texter says if you want to put everybody on it, it will just be a mess.
Yeah, and that is the thing. You can't have everything on there. So you got to have just a few things. For example, the Canadian flag. We have so much in this country, but we just have a maple leaf on it, and that represents all of Canada.
It's a unity. That's a unifier
unity,
too, right? If we start
exactly,
picking and choosing, you have provinces that say, well, there's nothing representing our province. There's nothing representing my culture on there as well. So that's maybe one reason why we just have that unifier with the maple leaf. It's one thing to bring us all together.
Just have a unifying symbol on the Manitoba flag, maybe a bison, maybe a star, maybe a medicine wheel, a sun, whatever we decide, and have that. A few basic colors that have actual meaning, like the snow, the lakes, the grass, the wheat. Just one or two, no, not one or two, like 2 or 3 or 4 colors representing various things, but don't have a lot on it. That's the thing. And already we have like 2 things on it. We have the Union Jack and we have a bison and a bunch of crosses in the Union Jack and over the bison.
So we also have a text from Kate that said, just keep it simple. And the time now to make that change is going to be cheaper to do it now than it's going to be in the future because things are just getting more and more expensive.
Yeah, keep it simple. Right now the flag isn't simple, so that's why I say have a simpler flag.
Yeah, and everything's getting more expensive, right? So if we do it now, it's going to be cheaper than if we do it in 10 years.
And it's always going to be like that, yeah.
So we should have done it 20 years ago.
Best time is always yesterday.
Best time is always yesterday. David, how likely do you think this is to happen?
Well, I always have my hopes up that we'll have a discussion. I really like the fact that this discussion is happening in the U.S. I honestly didn't think I would see so many states, not just Utah and Minnesota, but also other states like Illinois, Massachusetts, Maine, talking about changing flags. And the U.S. is close to us, but culturally similar. So this is probably the best time to do it. We just celebrated Manitoba's 150th birthday a few years ago. This is another good opportunity to do it. So I think this is probably one of the better opportunities. The previous government that we had in the province, they were on record as keeping the flag the same. We had a change in government last year, so this might be an opportunity for them to say, we have our own thoughts on this and we might look at changing this. So again, another opportunity to strike while the iron's hot now.
All right, to be continued. David, thank you so much.
Thank you.
David Kendall is a member of the Manitoba Vexillological Association. And we are taking a look at the weather outside right now. It is sunny here, but sorry, you know what? It's sunny up north. It's cloudy here. I've got the blinds drawn a little bit. But not a bad day here at 20 degrees, clearing this evening. We are going to have those cooler temperatures hitting overnight. So if you are planning to be outside, hopefully it's by a bonfire that you're having with friends, or you've got a sweater. Well, we've been talking about the flag, and now we're talking to Faith. Faith is in for Up to Speed this afternoon. Faith, what do you have happening?
Hello, Brittany. A lot of changes coming for kids as they get ready for back to school, from a new sleep schedule to new rules about cell phones in classrooms. We'll hear more from a psychologist about why those changes might make some kids feel just a teensy bit anxious. Probably not surprising. I would be too.
No, I know. I get anxious over things that I feel I shouldn't be. It's as I get older, I feel I get more anxious.
Even when you said it's sunny and it's not.
I know,
in my mind, I thought, I don't know if it's
I was like, no, it's not. That's not correct.
So there you go. We'll have that conversation coming up on the show.
All right. Thank you so much, Faith.
Thank you.
Faith will be on from 3 to 6 on Up to Speed. You can tune in then. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon on Radio Noon. I'm Brittany Greenslade. I will be back here tomorrow. I want to thank May McKillop, who is our technical director, Director Wendy Parker. Thank you so much. Our YouTube live stream with Travis Peterson. You can catch us there every day as well. You're listening to CBC Radio 1. Up next, Unreserved.